When we last left off in part 2, we were on the west side of Huron Avenue. Let's just go across the street to a building I'm sure most of you recognize as Ben's. But when I was growing up, this building was occupied by Montgomery Ward's. It was a place you could get good merchandise at a fair price. When Aaron Montgomery Ward founded his company in 1872, he hadn't planned on putting a store in Port Huron or any other place. He had the revolutionary idea of having a catalog company, where they would send catalogs especially out to the folks in the rural areas that were having to pay high prices because of middlemen and sometimes got shoddy merchandise. His early catalogs were just sheets of paper, but by 1875 the catalog looked like this. Customers were also attracted by the innovative and unprecedented company policy of satisfaction guaranteed or your money back, which Ward began using in 1875. In 1883, the company's catalog, which became popularly known as the Wish Book, had grown to 240 pages and 10,000 items. By 1904, the company had grown such that 3 million catalogs weighing 4 pounds each were mailed to customers. Of course, the catalogs we grew up with looked more like this catalog here. We didn't wait to have it mailed to us. As soon as we heard they were in, we were down in Montgomery Ward's, climbed those steps of the mezzanine, and picked up our catalog. In 1896, Ward's acquired its first serious competition in the mail order business, when Sears introduced their first general catalog. I'm going to throw this little tidbit in here regarding Montgomery Ward's free of charge. What does Rudolph have to do with Montgomery Ward's? The answer is this. Rudolph came to life in 1939 when the Chicago-based Montgomery Ward Company asked one of their copywriters, 34-year-old Robert L. May, to come up with a Christmas story they could give away in booklet form to shoppers as a promotional gimmick. Montgomery Ward Stores has been buying and distributing coloring books to customers at Christmas time every year. And May's department head saw creating a giveaway booklet of their own as a way to save money. In 1948, May's brother-in-law Johnny Marks wrote words and music in adaptation of Rudolph. Though the song was turned down by such popular vocalists as Bing Crosby and Dinah Shore, it was recorded by the singing cowboy Gene Autry. Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer was released in 1949 and became a phenomenal success, selling more records than any other Christmas song with the exception of White Christmas. So you see, Montgomery Ward's was more than just a store in Port Huron. In the early 1900s, Ward's was a way of life, especially for the folks that lived out in the rural areas. And don't forget, without Montgomery Ward's, there'd be no Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. This is what the store looked like in 1904. It was occupied by Beard, Goodwill and Company, and they sold carriages, they sold carriage hardware, iron and steel, and they sold bicycles. They sure knew how to sell bicycles. Here's a load of 500 bicycles. This looked like they were unloading in the back of the store, just off of Michigan Street. You have to remember that in the early 1900s, bicycles was a very popular form of transportation. They didn't have that many automobiles yet. This next building we'll do just a little bit backwards. We'll go to the oldest buildings that we have photo for first, and then we'll go from there. This would be the building just north of the old Montgomery Ward's building. This would be where the Gilroy parking lot would be and a good share of the Gilroy store. In the 1800s and early 1900s, A Union Hotel occupied the space. It was a 3-story hotel, and I think it gave the hotel across the street a run for its money. It had 110 rooms, steam heat, and a passenger elevator, and the rates were only $1.25, $1.50 a day. In the afternoon, with the sun setting in the west, the hotel was easily recognizable by the number of awnings that they had. Here it looks like someone stuck their camera out the window and took a picture of Huron Avenue looking north with a courthouse and Howard furniture in the background. This is an early postcard looking north on Huron Avenue. It would appear that the fire department is putting on some type of display for the folks along the side there. And if you notice on the right there at the Union Hotel with this many awnings out. This building was still there when I was growing up, although I never realized it was a Union Hotel. Had no idea. At that time it was just a bunch of little businesses in there. The businesses I remember being in there is the Junedale Meat Market, the Detroit Tea Store, Faulkner's, Coney Island, the Sandwich Shop, Singer Sewing Machine, Fort Huron Paint, and at one time or another Tasty Barbecue, and also a very small shoe shine parlor was in there as well. Here's a little closer look. You can see part of the Firestone store there and the sport shop right next to it. And the sport shop wasn't part of the Union Hotel, nor was Firestone. Started with Faulkner's here, and then the Detroit Tea Store was there as well. This picture stops short of the Coney Island, but who was alive during that period of time that don't remember the original Coney Island? What a great place to have lunch. I remember being there with my mother one time. We didn't have much money growing up, and I got a job when I was 14, and I took her out to lunch. And while we were out to lunch, we saw 2 boys sitting. One had food to eat, and the other one was just sitting watching them. And my mother said, "Poor boy, he probably don't have enough money to buy his food." And she looked at me, and I said, "Well, I guess I could buy his food." And she said, "That would be nice." And so I talked to the waiter, and he took the hot dog and a drink over to him. I thought I did the right thing, but for all I know, he could have been allergic to hot dog. But my mother had great compassion for other people. This is Huron Avenue looking north in that same section there of the Union Hotel. And you can see the signage out front. You can see the Fort Huron Wallpaper and Paint Store. You can see the Sandwich Shop beyond that, and Singer Sewing Machine, and way down on the end there you see the Sports Shop. Also notice way in the background you can see the smoke coming from the Waterworks smokestack. The old hotel and all those businesses was tore down to make way for Ace Hardware, and later became Gilroy's. Let's go back across the street again to the west side. This section here in the middle is where George Ennis moved to from their first location. And it was so much bigger than the first location. It was a beautiful store, very well done. It was brand new when they remodeled it. Everything was new in it. And it was a wonderful experience to go in there for your clothes. And before that, there was the family theater there. I remember growing up where I went to the theater and I could see 2 movies, not 1, but 2. See the previews, see 2, sometimes 3 cartoons, see a serial that changed each week, and I could see the latest news, all for 10 cents. What a deal. Here's a short movie clip of the front of the theater. In this photo here, there's several things I'd like you to notice. Number one is how many people there are on the sidewalks downtown. Number two, you can see the marquee of the Family Theater, but look what's advertised. Air conditioning. Really cool here. Something they didn't have a lot of back in those days, a good place to cool off. On the corner of McMorran and Huron Avenue, you can see that big tall building. That was a Greyhound bus station. You can see the bus sign. And then down here, this blue bus, that was a Port Huron Sarnia bus that took you across the bridge. And they ran on a regular schedule. And on the right, you can see where the Union Hotel used to be. And with a little bit of digital wizardry, you can actually see the hotel there, what it would have looked like if you were looking across the street back in the 1900s. Family Theater was located at 319 Huron Avenue. And in the year 1900, that address was occupied by the International Tea Company, which I believe is this skinny, narrow building in the center there. In this next segment, we're going to look at, let's look at two buildings together, because that's kind of the way the pictures are, and it might be easier that way. The first one is you see the business next to the George Innes's, which is the Colony Bar. And next to that, we have First Federal Savings. The Colony Bar was around for quite a while. It was there when the Family Theater was there. And right next to it, instead of First Federal Savings, you'll see that it was Grinnell's music store that was there. In this photo taken years before, you can see that it's no longer the Colony Bar, it was the Monterey Restaurant and Bar. And the building next to it was still Grinnell's. In this parade photo here, you can see the outside signage for Grinnell's a little better, where it says Grinnell's Music House. And next to that, there was the Chop Suey restaurant, and then the Paramount restaurant, and Walkeen Shoes. Occasionally I'll hear someone argue that a particular business was at this location, and another one argue, no, it was a couple doors down at this location. And actually they could both be right. And a good case in point would be Grinnell's and Walkeen Shoes. Grinnell's moved from the location you see in this photo down to where the Paramount Diner is, and that was their location in the early 60s. Walkeen Shoes moved from the place on the right to where the Chop Suey place was, as you can see in this photo here. And Grinnell's was located in the building to the right of Walkeen Shoes. Now in this particular photo, I don't know if Grinnell's was still there, but in the early 60s it was. And years before, Grinnell's was at the 300 block of Huron Avenue. It says in this ad it was at 613 Huron Avenue. So businesses relocated all the time. This concludes part 3 of Port Huron Past and Present. And in part 4 we'll finish up the 300 block of Huron Avenue on the east side, and then we'll mosey on down to the 400 block and see the buildings there of today and yesterday.